The Florida Aquarium opened in 1995, just down the street, in fact, from where we are. Visitors are treated to an underwater wonderland that includes a shark tank, you saw it this morning, and various interactive displays. All fun for the kids and adults. What you may not know is the type of serious research going on there. Our guest is Allan Marshall. He's Vice President, Biological Operations for the Florida Aquarium. Allan, thanks for joining us.
Supposed to be here.
From down under originally, yes?
Yes, I'm an Australian.
Never guessed, mate.
Oh, well, maybe I should amp it up a little bit.
And you've worked for 8 aquariums all over the world, right?
Yeah, I've been around. Yeah, had a lot of great opportunities to travel all over the world, work at different aquariums, move animals all over the place. It's been a fun ride.
And what brought you here? What was it about the Florida Aquarium and the Tampa Bay area that was so appealing to you?
Well, apart from the aquarium itself, which is a beautiful aquarium, one of the best things about this place being Tampa, it's just like where I grew up. It's the first place since I left Australia that feels just like home. It's hot, it's wet, it's got the ocean right next door. I mean, it's perfect for me.
So in other words, I don't need to go to Australia to experience Australia. I have it right here, is what you're saying?
You could try it. I hate to say it though. I'd be a fool to say I don't miss home. You should go down to Australia and see what it's like sometime.
Okay, maybe someday. To get to your specialty, and that is the study of coral reefs, correct? Which you've done in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Great Barrier Reef. Everyone's heard of.
One of the best.
Yeah. So I don't think people fully understand coral is actually a living organism.
That's right, yeah. It's actually made up of literally millions of tiny little animals that slowly build up a calcium skeleton, and that's what reefs are made out of. If you look at a coral reef, that's what it's made out of.
And we should be concerned about the erosion of or destruction of coral.
Absolutely, especially here in Florida. The Florida Keys, the coral reefs down there are in really, really poor condition. In fact, there's 2 species of corals that have just recently been put on the endangered species list because there's so few of them left.
Is there a way we can restore them?
We're trying, and that's one of the things that the Florida Aquarium is doing with a lot of our partners, is we're working in the Florida Keys to culture corals, grow them up, reproduce them, and then reintroduce them back onto the coral reefs. We have partners like the Coral Restoration Foundation, who to date have already put over 10,000 corals back onto the reefs.
Well, is it neglect or, for example, what would cause damage to a coral reef? Is it human intervention?
Unfortunately, it's a combination of a lot of different things. There's obviously the human intervention part. We have more people living in the Keys than there ever were, and there's a lot of pollution because of that, which affects them. There's damage, direct damage to the coral reefs from ships grounding, and then there's other insidious things such as, climate change, which seems to be making the water temperature go higher. There's other things such as, even up here in mainland Florida, the things we do here, that water trickles down onto the reefs, and that causes problems too. There's been diseases that have killed off literally thousands and thousands of corals down there. So there's so many different threats, and there's no way to just say it's one smoking gun. But everything we can do to help that, it makes a big difference.
There is an economic component to this, economic impact. For example, coral reefs are great fisheries.
Absolutely. And one of the major parts of the coral reefs is the fact that it's a home to all of these fishes, which have a very strong economic impact. The 2 corals I mentioned, the elkhorn and the staghorn corals, are one of the only 2 species in the Keys that create a real good structure, a really intricate structure that the fishes use for their homes. And without these, we're already seeing a massive decline in fish populations down there. So the more we can do to get these things going, it has this carry-on impact.
So is there a period, can they self-repair or not?
They can. It's actually interesting because corals are made up of, like, each coral colony is made up of lots of different animals, and this is the way we do it. If you break a piece off and put it down, it will grow into a whole new coral. So that's what we've been doing. We've been taking corals, carefully breaking pieces off and reculturing, growing them up into whole new corals, and then putting them back out on the reef.
You could call it coral farming, in a sense, isn't it?
It's exactly what it is.
There are medical applications, which I never realized. It's been used for treatments for a number of diseases, including cancer, chronic pain, bone grafting in humans.
It's amazing, just, all of the animals on the reef. We're still finding out now, like we're still researching what benefits they can have to people. One of the things that's being looked at even more recently is sunscreen. Corals live under bright sunlight and they don't get sunburnt. They actually secrete a natural sunscreen which protects them from the UV rays.
Is it apples and oranges to compare other places you've been with the reefs, with the coral in Florida? In other words, Australian coral reefs versus what you would find here.
They are very different. They're very different species of animals that are on them and that. But overall, the coral reefs as a whole are pretty much the same thing. And you know, I come from Australia. I have to say the Great Barrier Reef is fabulous. But even that is in trouble. There's a lot of reefs that are in decline for very similar reasons to the Florida Keys. So scientists all around the world are working very hard to find out what the problems are and try and change the direction that we're going in.
I mentioned the Florida Aquarium is certainly a tourist attraction,
Of course.
but it's also a research facility, obviously.
Absolutely. We do a lot of things, and the public isn't necessarily aware of everything we do. But we, not only the coral restoration work that we do, but we do research on sharks, we do research on seagrasses, we do restoration efforts even right here in Tampa Bay. We have an island that we take care of that we've restored that was completely polluted, and now it's becoming a wonderful attraction for the area.
And how is that accomplished? How do you restore a polluted island?
You get out there and you do it.
You clean it up?
You get out there and you clean it up and
Right.
you remove all the invasive plant species that are on the island and remove any invasive animal species if you can find them, and you basically take better care of it. The same way that we should be doing for everything.
Periodically there are concerns that certain species of fish are being overfished. And there periodically will be a ban on fishing for certain types. Is that an ongoing concern?
Yeah, it always will be. You know, the world's population is getting larger and larger, and we derive a lot of our protein and a lot of our nutrients from fishing and from the ocean. So there always will be that. But there has been a large push in more recent years to be more conscious of fish stocks. Fish take what we need, but be aware that there is a limit to how much you can take before you're taking too much.
What should the average person know about respecting marine life? What is it we don't understand?
I think you've actually got it right there. We don't understand. The average person doesn't understand. Even people that work in the oceans don't understand everything. So I think it's mostly just understanding. And when you say how do we respect it, it's really just what you said. Learn, understand, and just have some respect.
And in your work, do you learn something practically every single day that you didn't know before?
Every moment of every day. It's been, like I said, it's been a fabulous ride. We've done some wonderful things at the aquarium. We're still doing wonderful things, still learning new things. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we were down doing some coral research down in the Florida Keys, and we just found 3 new ways to breed corals, just 2 weeks ago. So
a coral breeding program.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So we've got this little kernel of information that we're hoping to expand on, and we may have found a new way to get these corals reproducing faster and getting the population back.
Fantastic. Allan Marshall from the Florida Aquarium, thank you so much for joining us today.
Very welcome, thank you.
Okay, now it's time for the last word. I'm going to punt this over to Kathy, who's with a very special guest. She's joined too by, well, the biggest and furriest sports fan at the University of South Florida.